Hey everybody, what is going on? I am back talking about Leica M-mount lenses, but not necessarily Leica lenses, even though I just acquired this 50 summicron rigid version 2 for my Leica MP a la carte camera. I absolutely love this lens. It is beautiful, it is clean. It was serviced by Kanto Camera in Japan, so for those who know, you know. And I just picked this up from Ricewall Photography, who's my go-to for a lot of vintage lenses and secondhand lenses. Anyway, they've been kind enough to also loan me these Voigtlander lenses to talk about today. The 50 f2 APO Lanthar and the 35 f2 APO Lanthar. And we're going to focus on the 35 a little bit more on this review because this is a very special lens in the sense that Leica has just released their 35 f2 summicron APO variant recently, which has got a lot of people excited, and the price point is about 10 to 12 times of this lens. But those who have tried this lens are very impressed. How good is this lens? Is it worth considering even though it's 12 times less? Can it even get close to the Leica? Well, let's talk about the 35 f2 APO Lanthar from Voigtlander. This video is brought to you by Secret Lab. Here at Geek Culture, we love our Secret Lab chairs, especially the all-new 2022 Titan Evo with its revamped 4-way lumbar system for enhanced back support. If PU Leather 2.0 isn't your cup of tea, then consider the all-new Soft Weave. Even more soft and breathable than before, the chair comes in more colors, including this lovely frost blue. The Titan Evo is even magnetized, allowing the head pillow to stick on the headrest without straps. Of course, there are even more new features, so do check them out at secretlab.co. So before we begin, I do want to let you guys know we're not paid or sponsored for this video. These are my thoughts and my thoughts only. Now, Ricewall Photography, as I mentioned, provided the lenses for review, but that is it. Anyway, let's talk about the design of the 35 f2 APO Lanthar. Now, in regards to the 50 f2, these lenses are relatively the same. The only difference you're going to notice, of course, is the 35 is slightly taller. Oddly enough, you think 35mm would be shorter than 50, but no, not in this case. But let's talk about the outside of it. Now, it has that scalped focus ring that we've seen on a lot of Voigtlander lenses as of late, the 51.2 Nocton, the 41.2, and also we're seeing it here on the APO Lanthar lenses. And this design element, if I'm not mistaken, derives from this 50 summicron rigid right here. Now, that wasn't planned to bring this here to show you the design similarities, but it's here. And also we're seeing a lot of the Leica limited edition lenses also come over with this scalped focus ring. But moving on to the Voigtlanders here, the build quality on this lens is fantastic. It feels solid. Nothing on this feels inexpensive whatsoever. Comes in at 304 grams. So it's got some weight to it, not heavy, but it's not light. It feels substantial. We've got red markings and white markings. The focus ring is smooth as butter. It feels fantastic. And you have a clickable aperture ring. Here, listen to this. Ooh, I love a clickable aperture ring. You know, some of these lens companies are just going with, non-click version. No. If you're making a photography lens, it has to click, in my personal opinion. Video, declick. Photography, click. It just feels better, you know what I mean? But moving to the front of the lens here, we have this chrome or shiny metal front element to it, which I'm not a big fan of, to be honest with you. And the reason I'm not a fan of it is because if you're mounting this to a Leica camera because it's an M-mount lens, but Leica doesn't make a shiny chrome camera. There's no shiny chrome elements on it. Everything is matte silver or it's brushed silver. So I kind of wish Voigtlander would just stick with the Sony E-mount variant where it's all black and bring that over into the Leica M-mount variant, but it is what it is. Lens is made in Japan. It says so right on the lens, which is a very, very good thing because nowadays there are some lens companies out there that are making their products in other countries. It's not a bad thing. It's just something to take note of. I mean, this lens just feels fantastic. Now, it's not a bulging lens in terms of its the width of it. It actually feels very narrow for what it is. And of course, it's an f2 versus a 1.2. 1.2 will require a little bit more glass. There's a lot of things moving inside of that to get that wide open aperture. So of course it will be a little bit more compact at f2. Moving to the front of it though, you do have that APO Lanthar design element, these three stripes red, green, and blue. Then you have 35 f2, a Voigtlander on it, and it is very clean, very modern. It looks great. Glass looks fantastic on it as well. 49 millimeter for the filter diameter on this as well. But that's pretty much the lens on the outside of it. It just feels and looks really nice. But let's talk about what's inside of this. You have 11 elements in 9 groups. You have a 12 bladed rounded diaphragm on this, so you're gonna get some beautiful bokeh out of this. You're gonna have a double-sided spherical element to this as well, and you also have that apochromatic design to it, which of course, that's what makes this lens very special. It's an APO lens. You know, spherical has been the big thing for lenses for quite some time, but I think APO is going to be the next version of lenses we're going to see out there in the marketplace, and I have a feeling other companies are going to come out with that as well in due time, because it's a selling point as well. But that's pretty much it, the lens in a nutshell. Of course, next to the 50, if you don't say 35 and 50, and you don't notice the length, you might not notice which lens you have on the camera. So anyway, now what we're going to do is we're going to go into Lightroom, and I'm going to show you images I've taken with the 35 f2, and I'll show you images that I've taken on film with the Leica MP camera and the GFX 100S to see how this resolves 100 megapixels. Can it do it? Let's find out. All right, guys, we're now in Lightroom taking a look at images from the Voigtlander 35 APO Lanthar. Now, I have used a variety of cameras for this. I've used the Leica SL2, the Sigma FPL, the GFX 100S, and also a friend of mine, Danny Tiong, has taken some shots on his M10 as well. So I'll be showing you some images with a variety of different cameras to give you an idea of how it renders and, of course, the image quality. So let's look at Danny's images first here. This is with the M10. This is absolutely stunning in terms of sharpness. There's no aberration. It is a bitingly sharp lens. I mean, look at the lines on this. Yeah. Very, very impressive. No real vignetting here at all. Now, of course, when you hook it up to the M10, and if you want to put a lens profile to this, you're going to alleviate some of that vignetting. But when I'll show you what it looks like on other cameras, you will see a slight vignetting to it. But for the most part, I'm really happy with this. And I like the warmer tones coming out of the APO Lanthar as well. Here's another shot of this these little bushes here in the ground. And just look at the details. We zoom in on this, the cigarette butt, the greens, the whites. I mean, just the amount of detail this lens captures. Again, absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it's really, really stunning. Now, of course, we'll get to some bokeh in just a second, but let's talk about chromatic aberration in terms of shooting against backlight, because this is where you're going to really see the strength of a lens or not. Looking at these palm trees here. Looking here, and I really don't see anything happening on this. I mean, maybe some slight green fringing here, but easily correctable in Lightroom, but very, very minimal. Again, extremely impressive on that. Now let's take a look at an image on the 100S, and with the 100S, it's a little bit challenging to manually focus. I have to say the focus peaking on it, because of the lower resolution on the EVF, you do struggle a little bit in terms of really nailing focus, but nonetheless, we did a pretty good job. This is my friend Casey, and shot a profile shot, the beads of sweat right here, the detail. I will say that this lens, does it render a 100 megapixel sensor like the native GFX lenses? No, it doesn't. I would say this lens really sits well 50 to 60 megapixels. This is the sweet spot. Above that, I think you're going to see that this lens really isn't designed to resolve at that level, but it's still a decent image. No issues at all. No aberration through here. Great detail, great fall off. I mean, it's got a little bit of that pop to it. I'm very happy with that. Let's look at another image here. This is with the GFX 100S. Now you're going to see a little bit of the vignetting happening here. Now I did shoot this in a 35mm crop mode, but you will still see some of that because there is no lens profile to the Voigtlander in that regard. And if you zoom in on this, again, I missed focus a bit. The focus peaking isn't the best when you're using an M lens on the 100S, and also, of course, the resolving power of the lens on the 100 megapixel sensor. But I mean, it's good. It's not wow, but it's good. But this lens sits at home, as I mentioned before, on lower resolution sensors. Case in point, let's move on to the Leica SL2. Now here's a shot of me with the Leica SL2, and just zooming in on this, and look at the detail I'm able to capture. This is a reflection in the mirror, and I'll show you before edit and after edit, before edit, and after edit. Again, edits are personal preference. You may like or dislike, but a lot of detail right there. Very, very happy with the output of that image. Again, look at the detail we're seeing here on the Honda right here, the metal. I mean, this is bitingly sharp. The reflections right here, if I look on this, very minimal fringing at all. Little bit of purple right there, but honestly, we're splitting hair, folks. This is a fantastic lens. And this resolves the SL2, which was shot on beautifully. This is where it sits home at on this. You can see just the leather here on the seat, the details, the stickers here, unbelievable. Absolutely happy with this. Now I did do an edit to this. Let me show you the before edit. Now I did, the exposure was a little bit off on this, but of course I can bring up the shadows because of the great dynamic range on the SL2. And just look at the details on this. I mean, I gotta say, very sharp, handles everything beautifully. Again, performs great on this type of camera. Now let's go to, let's just show some bokeh for a second here. Now this is of a bird that I captured who was sitting on this little garbage bin here. And this was been cropped in a bit. Let me just show you the original image, the crop on that. So this is the original crop, and I cropped in a little bit just to kind of get into it because I couldn't get too close, otherwise he would fly away, right? But again, the amount of detail that's captured here, very, very usable. You see all the striations and all the details in his legs and his claws right there. The beak, the feathers. I can sharpen this a little bit up in post if I wanted to, but I love the fall off in the bokeh in the background. It just looks really, really nice. It's got character to it. It's not completely smooth, but it's got enough character to really where it stands out. So I'm pleasantly surprised with that. Here's a couple other shots here just to just get these birds flying in the air, just so more of an action shot. I stopped down on this, and again, you can see all the details here throughout this. The ISO was cranked up a little bit on this. Let's give you some of those numbers on it. This was at ISO 2500. SL2 is not the best with ISO, but it did an admirable job. Let's move on to the Sigma FPL. Now, this is a really nice camera. The colors that come out of the Sigma are absolutely beautiful on this. And look at the detail that I'm seeing right here on this. Now, of course, this is a smaller JPEG. I did bring this down just for if I want to post up on the internet. But yeah, this is really, really nice. Look at this. The amount of texture and detail in this statue here, really impressive. Also, I gotta say, the Sigma FPL colors are beautiful as well. Case in point, let's look at this one. And I really don't do anything with this because I'm just using the camera profiles inside of it. And it's minimal what I need to do because the colors out of this FPL with this APO Lanthar lens, fantastic. Look at the detail in the metal right here. Look how sharp this is, coming all the way through this. Again, I'm manually focusing this, but the Sigma FPL focus peaking works really, really well. Very similar to the SL2 in that regard. But again, the fall off, the 3D pop, it is there, folks. This is really, one of the most impressive 35mm lenses, third party for the M mount that I've used to date. Here's just another shot. I just thought that was interesting. This red garbage bag and the sea of green leaves. And then we just want to zoom in on this. Again, this is 60 megapixels. It handles this resolving power beautifully on this. Yeah, it's really, really nice. I'll show you the before edit, after edit, before edit, and after edit. Just ever so slight. And a little bit of architecture here. The buildings. Zoom in on this. Sharp. Very, very sharp. Again, big fan of it. So again, overall, the image quality out of this lens is extremely impressive. Oh, by the way, let me show you one little comparison just in case. I will be talking about this lens in another video down the road, but it's the Light Lens Lab 35 f2, kind of it's a Summicron homage to the 8-element Summicron. So let me show you the Voigtlander with a portrait of my friend Casey here. We just shot this in a camera shop. Straight out of camera. All I did was literally bring down the highlights ever so slightly. This was the original. I just brought it down a little bit. Manual focus, SL2. There you go. And then here is the Light Lens Lab 35 f2 8-element homage to the original Summicron. Again, different lens, softer. This is an homage to the original. The APO Lanthar is a more modern rendering lens, but just to kind of give you a comparison, I will be talking about this in a future video, I think, down the road, because this lens is stunning in its own right. Very different than the APO Lanthar, but I gotta say, if you're looking for something modern rendering, look at the detail that you're getting out of this. All right, now let's take a look at some images shot on film with this lens on my Leica MP a la carte. This was stopped down a little bit, but you still see the detail and how well this lens renders. Of course, film will have a very different look than digital, but it's nice to have this lens that if you really want to shoot on film once in a while, you have that liberty. And again, the details there, the sharpness, the fall off, the bokeh right here, the background. I'm very, very impressed with what I'm seeing out of this lens. And yeah, I mean, for film, definitely would recommend as well. Well, as we just saw in Lightroom, the 35 f2 is a fantastic performing lens. This is special. You know, the 50 f2 APO Lanthar is a fantastic lens, right? This 35 f2 APO Lanthar just really, it's better. It's just better. And for some of you out there, I mean, it's hard to tell by looking at Lightroom on YouTube the subtle differences. You might see it or might not, but I can tell the difference between these two lenses. As I mentioned in a previous video I talked about when I did a review on the 50 APO Lanthar, you know, I said it was around 90% of the Leica Summicron APO variant out there. And you know, that lens has been out for a few years, so of course it makes sense that other lens manufacturers will, you know, they'll acquire the lens, they'll, you know, reverse engineer it, they'll try to find that Leica magic, and they'll try to get their lenses as close as they can, keeping it reasonably priced. But this is special because these two lenses, I mean, the 35 APO Lanthar and the Leica 35 Summicron APO, were kind of announced at the same time. So there was no reverse engineering going on in this. This is basically just Voigtlander and Leica just putting out their variants out there and saying, hey, here it is. What do you guys think? Now, while I don't have a 35 Summicron APO lens to compare this with, and friends of mine who are Leica collectors here in Singapore don't have it yet either because due to delays in shipment and stock, because it is quite a limited lens right now, I'm just sort of relying on my comparison with this 50 f2 and of course, you know, other lenses I've tried. But I will say this lens really, really impresses me. And if you're not married to the Leica brand, you're like, look, I've already got a couple Leica lenses. I don't mind getting something that's third party, save a little bit of money. I'll get 95% of the, you know, the quality. You know what? You got to try the Voigtlander, guys. You really do. I'm going to go on a limb and say this. In terms of the third party lenses out there right now, not Leica lenses, but third party lenses for the Leica M mount, this is the best 35 I have tested thus far. It is solid. It is well built. The image quality out of it is fantastic. And the images I showed you, they're a prime example of it. So if you're on the fence, because it's not a Leica lens, I understand you. But if you're open to being a third-party lens owner, you got to pick this bad boy up. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on the Voigtlander 35 f2 APO Lanthar. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Is this a lens you're going to pick up? Are you going to pass on it? I would love to hear from you guys on that. And also, can you like this video if you enjoy the content and subscribe to us? It helps out the algorithm, helps out our channel quite a bit. We're going to do some really cool stuff here, and I can't wait to share with you some of the really interesting videos coming up in the pipeline. So with that, guys, take care, stay safe, and I'll chat to you in the next one. Bye.